We are gathered here to discuss Pamela Anderson's astrology after watching Pamela: A Love Story on Netflix. So, Sarah Armour, astrologer to the stars, what can you tell me?
Well, before I share the screen with you, why don't you take a guess about what Pam's big three might be?
Okay, I'm going to take a stab. I actually know she's a Cancer because I saw a tweet about it earlier.
Okay, yes.
Um, and it obviously makes so much sense. She's
Such a
fiercely
Cancer.
protective of her children and her home. She's incredibly watery. She goes with the flow like no one I've ever seen before. No one has ever gone with the flow to a more successful extent than she has also.
Right. Her whole life
It's
is sort of like a meditation of just like, whatever. The universe is
like,
guiding me. It's like, okay.
provided you are stunningly gorgeous with the best body that God ever gave a human,
Right.
you might end up in some pretty interesting places if you go with the flow, you know?
I
So
do
yeah,
think
I
I
would
do
say
think great beauty and E-size tits helps, but yeah, way to go. Just surrender.
the only other thing I can think of is Casey Bunker, friend of the pod and my sister.
Yeah.
She
Sister of the
said,
pod, co-host of the Trashler
sister of,
Nation portion.
yeah, sister of the pod, Casey Bunker. Let me read what she said. She said, Pamela has the best attitude, down for anything, no hesitation, gotta have Aries in there. So I feel like that makes a lot of sense too. I could totally see her being an Aries because she doesn't flip flop. She's not mealy mouthed. I mean, I think only an Aries would have the balls to give it right back to those male late night hosts and interviewers who would ask her about her boobs and stuff. No hesitation, just right back at them, called them out, told them they were being pervs. I don't know what other sign would be that good at that. Maybe a Gemini would be good at that because a Gemini, I think, would be sitting there saying, like, I'm mirroring you and I'm telling you that you're a perv, because Geminis are, because it's a twin, they love to mirror. So I don't know. And then I think my last thing would be she's got to have some Leo in there somewhere because I'm sorry. She's just the worship me energy is strong. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I never mean that in a bad way. She's got that Leo thing of just like, I'm here and I deserve everything. So give it to me, which I envy in Leos. So
You're
what
telling me
have I
you
gotten right or wrong?
you didn't look this up first?
No, I didn't. I saw the tweet about Cancer and that was it.
Molly, your astro deduction has gotten so good. I'm so proud. You are right on the money here. Pamela Anderson is a Gemini rising, Cancer sun, Aries moon, and in fact, that little Leo that you're picking up on, she has her Jupiter and her Venus in Leo. You nailed it.
Wow.
So
Oh my God.
yeah, I'm blown away. I'm just blown away. Wonderful work, Mal. And I think you described many of the things that we see in Pamela quite perfectly. So yeah, okay. So her sun in Cancer is in her first house, meaning that her life really is all about developing, exposing, leading with herself, leading with her presence. Also, I think it's kind of interesting that the breasts are ruled by Cancer. So she's known
Nuh-uh.
for her
Stop.
breasts. Yeah, the mother. So her breasts being what she's leading with in the first house, kind of perfect. As a Gemini rising, I totally think you nailed it. That's why she has that attitude of like, whatever. Yeah, I can go to these interviews and be funny right back to you. It's why she sort of has that wild side. I don't mean to brag as a Gemini rising myself, but we are known to be the best in bed. Because Gemini risings are just kind of down to find out. They're curious. Also, when you're in the documentary, she mentioned a few times that like her philosophy on life, which is very uncancer like, but again, you're so much more than just your sun sign. But her philosophy is very much like, I just want to go have these experiences and then I move on. That is the combination of a Gemini rising and then that moon in Aries. Casey, you nailed it. Moon in Aries in the 11th house. She really is here to just go like insert herself, or not even insert herself. Herself is here to be inserted, and she's most comfortable in the world being inserted into 11th house, the public sphere, a broadcast, you know, like visual, like her presence, her energy of showing up and just like being nude in the world. Why wasn't that more uh scandalous for her? Well, let's just see. Her Lilith is exactly conjunct, or not exactly, but it's closely conjunct her moon in Aries in the 11th house. So not only did she have a sex tape scandal where she was, publicly exposed without her consent, but she also has made a living on doing the things that I don't want to say most women, but many people would say, "Whoa, you're exploiting yourself. What are you doing?" And she's like, "No, I'm actually owning my sexuality and I'm actually doing exactly what I want to do. And I don't give a darn. I don't give a darn if you guys are judging me or think this is exploitative in any way. Like, I'm here to do me. I'm here to follow my sexual impulses. I'm here to get mine." And I think, in her early life, she says that she was raped at 12. We have her Saturn in the 11th house in Aries. So, the numbers just, they don't lie. So, okay, 1159, we round that up to 12. So 12 years old, there was something that actually came in and maybe created a barrier or a problem with her relationship to herself, and also trusting 11th house, like the babysitter, like people that are coming into the world that are supposed to be like sort of parental figures, are supposed to be there for you, that are actually challenging your sense of safety. So that was like what she had to deal with, and then her Chiron is in the 11th house as well, but it's in at the 29th degree of Cancer. So not only is her greatest healing in the world, like her greatest, how do I want to put it? Her strength as a healer comes with her being the mother and her embodying this sense of I mean, that's why she was so quick to be like, "Tommy, you're out." Because as somebody, Chiron at the last degree, oh no, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's not Chiron in Cancer, it's Chiron in Pisces. So as somebody whose boundaries were violated early on, she became the mother who actually would not allow her children's boundaries to be violated. And she became a really healing figure in the area of, taking, talk about Chiron in the 11th house in Pisces. Yeah, she goes with the flow. And as a result, especially when she overcomes her own Saturn demons and takes back her sense of self, she becomes this sort of Lilith, Moon, Aries archetype where she's like, literally, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I'm just doing me. And I'm just going to follow my impulses and follow my instincts and make sure that I'm not only not sexually repressed or sexually stunted at all from what has happened to me, but I'm actually owning it. And I'm actually being rewarded for my ability to, sort of dabble in the taboo.
Wow. Is the Gemini rising part of why she sort of was mirroring Tommy? Like her persona, her public persona completely changed when she started dating Tommy Lee. And like it has gone through so many different evolutions since then. And it just seems like a lot of the time it has a lot to do with who her partner is. It's sort of like this Kourtney Kardashian-esque Brad Pitt type sort of just mirroring of the partners,
Yeah, I do think that. I think that, like, your rising sign represents a number of things, but it's sort of like the costume you wear in the world. It's how you show up in the world. It's how you see people. It's how people see you. It also is sort of like the school you're in. So it's not actually like necessarily a bad thing that she uses mirroring as a tool in order to connect and stand up for herself and sort of make a name for
yeah, because
herself.
I don't think I don't think she's changing who she is on the inside when she does
Right.
this. I think she is literally just fun with fashion.
Yep.
Like it's
Well,
just,
well.
I'm going to dress this. Yeah, I'm going to dress like this person when I'm with this person. And then I'm going to become a little more ladylike later on when I marry the billionaire. I just think it's just a fun game for her in a way.
Absolutely. And I also think, it's worth noting, if you're into degree theory at all, the 22nd degree is it's known as the killer be killed degree. Harry, if you remember, also has a 22-degree sun. So what ends up happening with people that have prominent, it's 18 degrees and 22 degrees are the two that you really want to look out for. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It actually can lead to really positive manifestations, but it's a really powerful sort of make or break degree where if it doesn't take you down, you become someone who can actually change the world with your ability to overcome. And so I think that's the other thing, like 22-degree Gemini rising with 22, it's also a number of duality and partnership. And so I think that she really is here to mirror the world, and I think embody this softer side of whatever it is that she's like. So yeah, she did become a de facto Tommy, but actually she didn't. She looked like him, and she kind of got into his world, and she was down to go with the flow when it came to like, what do you want to do? Okay, let's get married. But I think ultimately her ability to take things lightly, not make anything that sacred or serious or heavy, allows her to actually overcome what other people might see as like life-ending tragedies.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know what I can't stop looking at on this page because I'm not an astrologer, I'm a writer, is Ladysmith, British Columbia. And I was in her birthplace up in the top left. And I couldn't stop thinking about this when I was watching the documentary either. What a perfect name for her hometown,
I know.
Ladysmith, someone who constructs a woman. She like
Yeah.
constructed this persona for herself out of thin air, out of like the raw materials that she was born with. She is a true Ladysmith.
She's literally
And
a ladysmith. Sorry.
what in her chart would relate to that? Anything?
Well, what I think is interesting is, okay, so the Leo that you were picking up on, she has her Jupiter and her Venus in Leo. Her Jupiter is in the third house. This is the Gemini house. What does Gemini rule other than like mirroring communication, siblings, our local community? It also is like the media, and it is the stories we tell, and it is, writing in the written word, and it's the story. So it's interesting because her Jupiter in Leo with her Venus in Leo, both are, it's like it's not a coincidence. Like we know about the Leos, it's not a coincidence that like her life changed when she changed her hair. Like all of a sudden she became a blonde and like everything was
Mm.
different. And because she has that Jupiter and that Venus in Leo, not only does she attract abundance and attract attention and attract um money when she sort of shares that, like when she's leading with that performative side of her nature, like everything Leo that she does blows up, makes her more attractive, gets her attention and money, etc. And it's all trine her Saturn and her moon and her Lilith in the 11th house in Aries. So there's like a really harmonious relationship between her ability to, sort of, and I don't want to say like costume as a woman, she is a woman, but like just sort of when
But
she
she enjoys
blows up.
performing
Right.
her gender for sure.
Well,
Like
that's even
she
what she was
is
saying about
she's
that's what she was trying to say about like it's not about me being pretty, it's about like I'm good at this job. Like when she's like, "Oh, I'm going to
but it's
put
also
on my I mean, she is pretty, but right, but when she's
yeah.
like I'm going to put on my like in her mind when she's doing those photo shoots, especially for the first time, she's like, "Oh, this isn't like Pamela. Like this is like I'm acting as like a Playboy model." And then she like blows up her hair and blows up her tits, and all of a sudden she's really getting Moon in the 11th house with Lilith. She actually wants to be seen and celebrated as a sex symbol and as somebody who themselves, like who they themselves is, like the thing. Like her career was very faded, which we also see in the documentary. It's like, no, I don't think she had any like major career aspirations as much as she just actually wanted ownership of herself and ownership of her body. And the more that she leaned into Jupiter and Venus in Leo, like exploding or blowing up, magnifying her feminine ladylike or her lady parts, her lady features,
Yeah.
the more
She's
harmony there
basically
was with her moon and the more comfortable she felt on earth.
she's basically in drag. Like the
Right.
cartoonishly thin drawn on eyebrows, the big lips, the super blonde hair that's always like perfectly coiffed.
Yeah.
And it's funny to see how and the boobs obviously and the outfits. It's funny to see how she's kind of left that behind too because in the documentary obviously she has barely any makeup on and I was stunned by the box dye, the
I
boxes of
know.
blonde hair dye. I was like, Pam, you gotta what? Who dyes their hair blonde at home? It's so risky and it just damages your hair so much. I was like, what? Like, you have the most notorious, famous, iconic, beautiful blonde hair in the world. Like, why are you putting Garnier Fructis on it?
Because she really is actually like a down home girl. Like when it comes down to it, and it's so interesting too because it's like her whole journey in the documentary. It's like her whole journey led her back to her childhood home and the childhood tiny island in British Columbia that she grew up on. I think that she I really don't think that she is pretentious at all. I think, you know, her Mercury is also in Cancer in the second house. I think she actually just values being able to go with the flow and being able to like find her worth in her femininity and find her worth in her ability to like just sort of do those domestic things. Like I think she likes doing her own hair, not because she's cheap or because I don't think she's that concerned with like damaging her hair. I think she likes to express herself by like doing the feminine arts.
Very cute. What's her
Mhm.
Chiron? What's her Chiron?
29 degrees Pisces. So her wound is like, yeah, uh 11th house, 29-degree Pisces. It's like as a kid in her early life, the community made her fear for her safety and her boundaries, and she was violated very young. But as a result, it turned her into actually a really trustworthy caretaker.
Hmm.
And it's why she can go with
Interesting.
the flow. I mean, what is more the flow than the last degree of the zodiac? So even though as a kid it was what wounded her, as an adult, it's what, and post Saturn return, it's what sort of allowed her to just surrender into the flow of things. Also, kind of interesting. How old was she when the sex tape came out?
I think she was 28 or 29. Let me
Well, how
see. I'll
interesting.
Google it.
Look, her Chiron here is at 29 Pisces. It's like the ultimate,
Wow.
the ultimate like exploitation of her and a boundary crossing by the community at large, and it was put all on the internet, and it was, you know, exposing her en masse. But I also think as a result, she like nothing else was ever going to be that bad. Like it sort of, I think, gave her a sense of sweet surrender, because she was like, you know what, like what could be worse than all of your private, like all of their guns and their home videos were stolen. And it's like, you know, the guns is bad, but the sex tapes really bad. You know, and I think that
Yeah.
that violation actually was part of where I think it did firm up her insistence on putting her children's safety first and just creating some boundaries around her own like personal, like I think it's probably also why she didn't care that much about continuing to like quote unquote grow her career in any sort of methodical way. I think she was like, okay, well, I like being famous. I'm already famous. What she really wants to do is just be herself and be safe and be a safe parent. And I think when something, aside from all of the childhood stuff, when something even as an adult violates I mean, that's what she said in the documentary. She said that the tapes being distributed without her permission felt like rape, which I totally get. But once she sort of got through that or moved on from it, thank God she has that Aries moon, because she's like, whatever. I think it allowed her to go with the flow much more, because she was like, like what else could happen?
Yeah. She was 28, by the way, when the year that the tape got
It's,
stolen and came
it's
out.
pretty wild that 29 is when like her wound was officially activated.
Yeah, that's crazy. Do you
Mhm.
see in this chart, is she gonna get married again?
I think she could get married every day for the rest of her life, and it would make sense to me. I mean, her Mars is in the fifth house, romance, lovemaking, creativity, in Libra. So, like, what motivates her? What drives her? What does she wake up in the morning for? Relationships. And I do
Cute.
think that, like,
Okay.
if anything, I do think that, like, I think that I think she is I think getting married is her hobby.
Yeah, for sure. That is
You
her
know?
passion, is just like getting married and dating people.
Yeah.
Okay, what about Tommy? What about like their charts together?
Well, let's look at Tommy real quick. How interesting. So Tommy is a Sun Lilith conjunction with his Mercury in Libra. So that means that her sun is square his sun, which denotes conflict. Also, it means that his sun and Mercury and Lilith are opposite her sun and Mercury and Lilith. So, you know, I think what you found here, let me just pull up their charts
He's
together.
a Libro.
He's a
Wait, go through
Libra.
before you go into their synastry. I think let's go through
Just
the
him.
very basics, because most people don't understand like most of what you're
True,
talking
true.
about. So just go through his basic sun, moon, rising, and then we can do the synastry, just so that people know what to think about it in terms of like themselves and how they can relate.
Right, right. So we don't know what his rising is because we don't have a time of birth for him. His moon, if you place him at noon, just like the noon time of the day he was born, as a 0-degree Sagittarius. And I checked it. So basically, if he was born before 10 a.m., he's a late degree Scorpio moon. If he was born after 10 a.m., he's like a very early degree Sag moon. I would guess Sag just because of what a wild guy he is. Like, he's so wild. So I don't know. I think
I
Rockstar
also
is
think
very Sag moon.
yeah, but I also think Scorpio, he does like, I mean,
Well,
he
his
comes
Venus is
from
in Scorpio.
behind.
His Venus is in Scorpio though. So his the way that
Okay.
the way that he loves, the way that he makes love, the way that he gives love, the way that he attracts, what he's attracted to is sort of, that's why of course he was attracted to a Playboy model. He was like, oh yeah, like a little taboo, like something that like should be kept behind closed doors, like hypothetically, like, well, let's do it together behind closed doors and then expose it. Lol.
And then once he gets someone, his Scorpio stinger comes out and he starts becoming abusive.
Yes.
Womp, 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 which
Yep.
obviously not all hashtag not all Scorpios, not even most Scorpios. It just seems that's probably how that's manifesting, right?
Well, it's
In what, in
what
him.
I would say is most Scorpios go through a phase, at least, where when they feel abandoned or betrayed or hurt, or like I think looking at his chart, regardless of where his moon is, he was telling us the truth about why he flipped out when the babies were getting all of his attention, because he was like, wait a second, like
Mm.
he felt like it was a betrayal, and he felt like, you know, like I need to do something to keep you or to get your attention or to, like I totally get, like, the underside of Scorpio is really acting out when you feel it's like there's a lot of sort of like boundary violation in both of these charts and in both of their psyches, where I think even if it's not something that we would agree upon about what the boundary should or should not be, when he feels that a boundary is violated, yeah, his stinger comes out and he's like, how dare you, you're mine. And it's like, no, we're us, we had kids, man. Like, what the hell.
Yeah.
um
What can you tell us about Libras, male Libra sons?
Libras, again, there's always the shadow side and then the light side, right? So because he has Lilith conjunct his sun and his Mercury, I think, you know, okay, first of all, Libros in general, Libros at best love beauty and women, and the Libros love aesthetics and balance and justice. But again, why was he so upset when the babies actually took his attention? Because he's like, the balance is off. Like, they do
That's
they do
exactly what the balance is supposed to be when there's a newborn, Tommy. That is
well,
what
right,
the
but
balance is
he's
supposed to be.
he's demented. I mean, he's an idiot rock star. So it's like, I just think
Yeah.
that he you know, I think Libras can be very flippity floppity. I think they can be they can sort of change face really quickly, depending on who they're with or who they're talking to or what's going on. And so that can be sort of jarring. But in general, Libras are more like I think at the beginning when they first got together, why was this so appealing to both of them? Because he's like, oh, I am so into the fact that you're kind of this, you know, salacious sex goddess, like public sex goddess. I'm a Libra. I'm here to serve you. I appreciate your beauty. I want to just, wherever you want to eat is fine, babe. Like, we think of it as like, oh, she was just mirroring him. But I actually think that I think it was a sort of toxic combination of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's a Cancer Aries. So her moon is like, I want to do this, I want to do that. I mean, let's not forget that actually before they just met and randomly got married, she ghosted him for like months. Like, so I think I think there was a buildup for him where he was like, oh my God, like, why doesn't this girl like me? And you know, him being so persistent, like, he is the type that, like, yeah, he's like, oh, you're gonna be in Cabo, so will I, and like just went there to be with her. I think he's driven. Libros are driven by beauty, by relationship, by, I'll have what she's having. And I think at the beginning she was like, oh my God, finally someone who sees me and that wants to just like care for me and put me front and center. Libros want to put you front and center, but at the same time they can be fairly changeable. And Libras care about diplomacy until they don't. Right. Let's remember some of our most famous Libras that we've been talking about. Jen Shaw, Amber Heard, Libra Moon, like, that whole trifecta of Markle, Kim, Ivanka, they all have tons of Libra. So Libras really are into beauty and aesthetics and making things look pretty and nice and justice and balance and all of that. But at the end of the day, they also can sort of pull the rug, as we see here, when they're like, well, wait a second, the balance is off in my mind. So like, now I don't feel that way anymore. Now I'm not going to act that way anymore. And so there can be sort of like a jarring, I think with Libras, there can be a jarring, like, change up where you're like, well, wait a second, I thought all you cared about was relationships. And in their mind, they do, but they also care about making things right. And so when their ego is wounded or when their ego is confronted, I think sometimes we can be very surprised by what a Libra actually is thinking or what a Libra actually is expressing, because it's sort of like, what? Like, you sold me
It's
this
like below
whole
the
yeah,
surface. Yeah.
yeah,
So he seems like a very slippery. He's like, I mean, not that he's clamoring to date me, but he's like
yeah,
this is my nightmare chart of a guy to
yeah.
date.
Oh,
Like, I think this
definitely.
would be so high maintenance and just like difficult. And like you would have to just be struggling to keep up with this person. And I think it would drive me crazy. I need someone who's a little more chill. But
Well,
then
the
again,
other
I'm married to a double Scorpio. So what the hell, like, what could be less chill than that?
Well, but the charts, like, and the layout of the charts, like, the issue is we don't know his houses. But
Yeah.
I think that so like with Nick's chart, for example, like, you can see that, like, he's so Scorpio, but it's very mission driven. And it's in like relationships. He's like, look, he was here. I told you, he was down here being like, where am I going to find my wife? Like,
Yeah.
that's what he was
Okay.
interested in.
Let's do the charts together, the synastry.
So we'll do the synastry and then we will do the composite chart. So the synastry of their relationship, like I said, their suns are square each other. So we have Pamela on the inside in blue. Pamela is a Cancer sun. Now, what's interesting too is his Pallas Athena, her Pallas Athena too, but his Pallas Athena is directly to the degree on her sun. So when they met, he was like, whoa, you're changing the game for me, girl. And square his sun, there's an ego. Like, I would say what I get out of this composite chart is like they're competitive with each other. Tommy has his Mars in Cancer on her Mercury. Pam has her Mars in Libra. So they both have Mars in the same sign, square, that both of their Mars are square anyway, but both of their Marses are in the same sign as the other one's Sun and Mercury. So either this can be hot sex, Mars sex, like, oh my God. Like, and square, it isn't always bad. Sometimes it's that tension, it's that creative tension, it's that sexual tension that makes things fun, but it can go south really fast, because all of a sudden, when things aren't so good, you have their war god basically directly like challenging and fighting with their ego and their voice. So like this is a couple that is sort of guaranteed to spar, whether it's really interesting because the way that she describes her parents' relationship is very much what we see in, like, she met him and why was she so comfortable immediately? Because she's like, oh, even if we fight, it's going to be fighting that leads to fucking.
It's interesting, but you can't say that F word.
Oh, sorry. Okay, hold on. I'll edit. Hold on. It's going to be fighting that leads to makeup sex.
Okay, so it's interesting because that was not part of their story as a couple in the documentary. Like, at no point in the documentary is she doing that stupid thing that I hate. We love hard and we fight hard. Like, she doesn't say that. So it's
I think
almost
it's
like
I don't think they
the
fought.
only time you hear about strife in their relationship is the last straw when she leaves.
Which leads me to believe that there was a lot that this Cancer Sun, Cancer Mercury was just like was going with the flow over, because actually also at the end of the documentary she does say, if I were to be real and go through the list of like all of the things that were really going on, it might not be so romantic in my head, but like I'd rather not think of it that way, and this was the greatest romance of my life. Do you know what I mean? Like, she does say, like, you might say this
Yeah.
was an abusive relationship. For somebody's final straw and only thing we hear about to be having them arrested, there was stuff going on.
Right. But like, I think she was going with the flow. Like him coming and trashing her trailer and freaking out. Like she doesn't give any inkling of having said anything to him. Like, you can't do this. You're ruining my career. Like she just kind of is like, whatever. And like, that's not a knock against her. It just seems to be the way she dealt with it. It was just like, okay, he's acting like crazy. We're super in love. So I guess I'm just dealing with this. And then the final thing, like he finally crossed the line, and that
Right.
was when she finally kind of like fought back,
Right. Well, but
in a
I
sense.
also think that, first of all, him trashing her trailer was what daddy did. So to her, that was actually not abnormal. Like she saw her
Mhm.
parents fighting like that all the time. So she was like, oh, this man, you know? And I also think that because of that moon in Aries, there's a part of her that kind of loved, and sun in the first house. Like she's like, he's obsessed with me. Like I think there was a way
Right.
for
And
her to
like,
justify, like, hey, he's just going crazy because we are so crazy in love. But that's also kind of why I think, if I were going to guess, I would say moon
we've
in
all been there
Sag.
also.
Oh, totally. But I also think moon and Sag, because it would make sense for their moons to be trine and harmonious, just because of how fast they like, once they worked together, they were together. Like, and this was arguably her most successful marriage and the one that she's still attached to. So I do think on some
Mhm.
soul level, there is that fire between them. Like I see him having a fire moon because I mean, he's passionate. He flew there to go meet her. Like, I don't know. I see him being a Sag moon more than a Scorpio moon, because his comfort level isn't just like staying at home and like I think if he was a Scorpio moon, he might be just as abusive, but we wouldn't hear about it. That's why I told you on the White Lotus, I don't think that Dom was a Scorpio, because it's like he wouldn't get caught,
Okay.
but I do think that like there is very much in this synastry. I mean, his North Node is right on her Jupiter Ceres conjunction in the third house. So like his North Node really was to his life's work really is to um like expand her, like he was here to have her become a mother. He has his Saturn conjunct his south node in Aquarius, which I think indicates that from a past life perspective, he's used to being like the daddy, the boss. And so I also think that that's where, when you challenge his uh authority or position, he's like, wait, what? But actually the point is, North Node in Leo, he's actually meant to learn to not only lighten up a little bit and become a little bit more heart-centered and personal, but actually focus on the children.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure he has maybe hopefully focused on them more as the days go
Well, it
by.
doesn't seem like they have a bad
So wait,
relationship with
wait.
him.
Can I just say that we've been doing this for 2.5 hours? I think
Oh
we
yeah,
kind of need
we've
to
done.
I
Let me
think we
just look
need to stop.
really quick. Their composite chart makes total sense to me. In their composite chart, regardless, I checked it, regardless of what his moon is in the composite chart, the relationship has them at a sun in Leo, exactly opposite moon in Aquarius. So for them to have a hot and heavy public romance and then have a
Mhm.
relationship that actually not only had to break up, but also sort of like their fondness is still present for each other, but it's from far away, makes total sense to me. Also, this energy is a full moon energy relationship. So it's like the best of times, the worst of times, and everything's exposed.
It sounds 100% accurate.
hmm So yeah, I think I don't think that they're highly compatible would be my read.
I mean, but it was fun while it lasted. I guess that's
Absolutely.
the thing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was fun while it lasted. And
So,
honestly, side note real quick, his Venus is on her south node. So that is one indicator to me where I would think, okay, so when they met, she had a past life sort of recognition of him as a lover, which in Scorpio can sometimes be like a little bit abusive or a little bit sort of controlling. Her North Node in Taurus in the 12th house, she's really here to learn to surrender into safety.
yeah. Well, I hope she gets it. I really do hope that her next husband is
Husbands.
a, yeah, may your next husband be a masculine husband, to quote The Godfather in a little bit of a weird twist, but a nice one at the same time,
A
not a big
divine
meanie.
masculine.
Yeah, a divine masculine husband. That is what Pam needs, because I think Pam is textbook divine feminine. Like
Absolutely. But she does have enough fire.
100%.
She has enough fire to stay in the, she has enough fire and air in her chart that she's not, no matter how much we try to roll over her and squash her femininity, you just can't.
Oh yeah, no, it's still there and it will be there forever. She will be like a Marilyn Monroe figure forever. Like she's always going to be
But if
Diana,
anything,
Marilyn, like
yeah,
she's one of those iconic blondes, you know?
I guess the only thing I'd say is like, if anything, gays, get on board. You're missing a huge opportunity here.
I know, she's
What the
fun.
hell? Yeah.
I'm sure there are Pamela gays. There are definitely Baywatch gays out there somewhere. So hit us up if you are.
Shout out, join the Patreon, sound off in the comments. Are you a Baywatch Pamela gay?
Yeah, Baywatch.com, patreon.com/space trash podcast. And also buy readings from Sarah on her
Yeah.
Instagram because you too can learn whether you're compatible with your partner and you can still get married. It's just maybe not going to last.
You might get married a few times. It might be fun.
Yeah, you might as
Yeah,
well figure out now so you can get ready. Get those
marriage,
prenups in order.
marriage for sport, baby. Do it like Pam.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. Okay, cool. See you later, Mom.